Welcome everyone to my channel, Beth Bell Live. I am so excited to have you here for a lot of reasons today. It's 11:11 a.m. on Sunday, but in Singapore. So a little bit off for everyone that's viewing in the United States. It's 7:11 p.m. Pacific. It took me a little while to get all the conversions done right. So I hope you're on with me live. It's a little bit different timing, and we'll be doing the same next week, but from Bali. So put it on your schedule just for these couple of weeks. We're going to be doing Saturday night in the United States, and it's 11:11 a.m. in Singapore, which is super special for me because I actually lived in Singapore for a couple of years. And so there's a lot of things that are, I would say, accelerating my heart, weighing heavy on my heart, lots of reflections about my life 10 years ago when I lived here. And that's what the show is all about, is your state of the heart and what's weighing heavy for you. So if you have a question that's coming to mind, anything about relationships, whether it's work, family, friends, anything that has caused you heartache, heartbreak, or maybe even something you anticipate to cause you heartache and heartbreak, I'm happy to channel the insights and provide some additional guidance on how you may be able to move forward and move from, if you have a broken heart or maybe a healing heart, into a whole heart. So get your questions ready. If you ask them live, you can put them in the comments section. If you're here listening on replay, you can also put them in the comments, but you can go over to bethbell.me/question and submit them there as well. So I thought before we get started, I wanted to ask everyone, what is your state of the heart today? If you're on with me live or on replay, put a little heart, one of the emojis, the color of your heart. Is it orange? Is it red? Is it purple? Is it blue? I'd love to know. And with that, we'll get started. I thought I would also share a little story. When I went on the airlines to fly to San Francisco before I came to Singapore, I went to check in. It was early morning. I was actually really happy, excited. I felt like I was exuding really warm, good energy. And I walked up to drop my luggage. And the lady said to me, I said to her, can we take the bag tag off? Or let's take the tag off. So it was like the old luggage tag. And I reached down and I took the tag off and I set it on top of the bag. Mind you, my bag's being checked in. It's like on the weight, on the scale. And she looked at me and just with this terrible face, and she goes, are you expecting me to throw that away? And I was just shocked. I was just kind of like, oh, I said, well, and I put it on top and I said, thank you. I did a lot of reflection on this. And I was so shocked by her response to me. And I said, yeah, I said, thank you. Is that okay? And she just kept giving me this energy. And I just leaned into her and I said, are you okay? And she still she was so disturbed by the entire interaction that she moved to another customer, and she just didn't want to have it. So my point is I walked away and I thought, I'm going to go get her name and I'm going to write something, right? And then I softened and I came into my heart space and I said, wait, I don't know what's going on with her. And yeah, she works for the airlines, and you'd hope that she would be coming at me as a customer and trying to help me have a good experience. But maybe my job today is just to help her have a good experience and for her to be seen and to just let it go. So I did. So I walked away and I said, no, you know what? I'm just going to keep sending love to her. I don't need to write a review. I don't need to get her name. I didn't need to do any of that. And then I walked onto the plane and I was carrying this massive bag with my friend's beautiful crystal bowls that are, very expensive and very precious. And I walked right to the back of the plane, and I had kind of had this, it wasn't traumatic. I don't mean to make it over dramatic, but it was just a little jolting because I really came at it with such a warm energy. And so I went up to them and I said, hey, I really need your help. And I tried to shift like how I approached even them, and said, I don't know what to do with these because I can't put them under the seat and I can't put them in the overhead. And I wasn't expecting that. And so she said, well, you're really not supposed to hold on to anything, but we'll make an exception. She was so kind. Her heart was so open. And I just thought, wow, okay, this is a message about getting out of our minds and getting out of the critical and just being vulnerable and saying, hey, I just need some help. And it opened her in a totally different way. She was so helpful. She took my picture. We made fun of fun of it in the sense of made light of it. And it was just a really great interaction. Now, I think the reason why those stories are coming forward to share right now is that a lot of us are in our minds and we're in this judgmental place and we're in a frustrated place and an angry place sometimes because of things that are happening in our external environment, things that we're feeling inside. And so if we can get really back into that heart space and not into the mental space and just love our brothers and sisters out there and really, really project to them a soft energy, knowing that there is so much more going on for them than we could ever imagine. And we don't need to know what it all is. We just need to come at people with compassion. So I think in today's environment, it's especially important for all of us to have that compassion and sort of forget about some of our thoughts about, well, I'm the customer and I should have customer service. I mean, yeah, we should. But I think when we soften our hearts, we can help soften others. And I think that's what really pollinating the planet is all about, is being in the now and being present for our brothers and sisters out there when they're going through a difficult time. All right, so with that story, I just wanted to move forward into, let's dive right into some of the questions. I see we've got one that's coming in live, so I'll cover that first. After several years of being single, I'm ready to start dating again. What are your tips for online dating as a woman in her 50s while being authentic and also catching the right man's eye? Interesting, because I actually think that feeds into like really being in that heart-centered space, because I think sometimes it can be frustrating out there in the dating world. There's a lot of really, well, I'm going to make some general sweeping statements, so bear with me for a minute, but there's a lot of really beautiful men and women out there. But I noticed that there's a lot of beautiful women who are very conscious, very open, and really looking for that man that can complement them. And so I think number one is don't settle. And I know you're not. Don't settle for something that doesn't feel like a resonance. And the way that we get to that resonance is to be in our own heart space and exude that out. And this comes to me often, but I think especially from the question that's being asked, it's like that Care Bear glow. I don't know if you guys remember that. It was like way back, I think in the 80s, or maybe, I don't know what year it was, but where you're really just anchored into your third chakra and your heart chakra, and you're able to bring that forward, to smile more at especially men, because oftentimes that is what a man looks for, to feel like there's an invitation to even open a conversation. And I think when I say that, what comes to mind is that it's also, it's not about like, oh, I'm looking for the guy. And I'm not saying you're saying that, but it's like, I'm looking to connect. I'm looking to connect with more men in my life. I'm looking to connect. And I don't mean business. Business, you've got it. I want to connect with strangers. And when you do connect with strangers, it's taking that feeling of what that connection, that innocence of just like, hey, I'm just curious, what that feels like to get to know someone and to look at them and to make the eye contact. I think that's what's coming forward right now to say is that ask yourself, am I able to, and am I holding eye contact appropriately with men that I think might be interesting? And oftentimes women don't do that because we don't want to invite something we don't know who they are. And that's fine. And there's discernment around that. But when we make that curiosity eye contact and we smile and we just genuinely are curious, we come up with it's going to sound cheesy, but come up with a few lines, if you will. This is what men do. They come up with a few lines and they use them as many times as they can, and they see like, who does it work on? So come up with a few lines that are authentic to you, that just brings curiosity to the table. And yeah, nothing's coming to mind in the moment, but if I get something, I'll share like what that line could be. But it might be something really basic about observing them. Like, wow, you have such beautiful eyes. Or, hey, thanks for letting me go first. Or you have such a great color on that you're wearing. Something that doesn't feel cheesy and doesn't feel like a come on, but is genuine to what you're actually thinking. And I think as you challenge yourself to just keep opening up, to opening the conversations, it will give men permission to see you in that fun, feminine way, and in a way that they go, oh yeah, it's no problem, I can approach her. and it makes you really approachable. So hopefully that's helpful. I think that, as we are more mature, we oftentimes have more, the word judgments come to mind, but I don't mean that harshly. I just mean like we have more preferences. That's the better word. And let's let go of all the preferences. Like when I look back and I think about people that I've dated, I wouldn't have swiped right on a dating app because it was the energy that we had. It wasn't about what their look was or how they dressed exactly. All of those things come into play. But when you get a feel about someone's energy, that's where I think the connection really comes in. So I would just encourage you to just start building those connections with a lot of men appropriately, and then the energy will start to turn a little bit differently for you, and it won't be so, I guess the word shy comes, and you may not be shy, but I know even for myself, sometimes I feel like I'm shy, like I don't want people to think that I'm coming on to them. But sometimes just having that genuine conversation is what opens up beautiful friendships that don't have to be romantic. So maybe just take off the romantic lens and get into the conversations of curiosity. And I think you'll find that there'll be a lot more opportunities that come your way. Okay, does that help? And if not, if you want more, I'm happy to. Okay, so it looks like that makes sense for seeing a man in person, but how do I get attention online? I think that is the challenge with online. And so if you're thinking like online dating apps, I'm assuming that might be where you're headed with this. Find an app if there is one. Does anyone know? Is there an app out there that allows you to do a video? Because I think what happens is a lot of times people put these pictures, like oftentimes on social media, there's like, this is my perfect self. And while you do want to put your best foot forward on dating apps, if you've got one that has a video, do a video. And do a video that's filled with your energy and your places and spaces. So if you live by the ocean and you love, sitting on a particular rock and meditating, then do the video from there. It's like, hey, this might not be the ideal, or maybe it is the ideal background to have because it's too noisy, but I just wanted to show this is what I love to do every morning, and put that onto the app. So if there's not an app that has a video, because I'm honestly not that familiar with all the dating apps, then I would still try to bring that energy of that funness through on a photo without overdoing it. I think that'll bring something more to the energy behind the photo, as opposed to your best, most photoshopped self. And again, I'm not saying that you do these photoshopped images, but I know that's very common for people, and you just can't really get the essence of who the person really is. So like as many people as possible as well from your end, and notice if you're being judgmental about preferences. And I like to really look at someone's eyes. I like to look at someone's smile. I like to look at how vulnerable are they in their photos. I think that'll start giving you some insights too. So it's not about just how they look. It's like, is there a twinkle in their eye? Is there a genuine smile? Is there energy there? And so when you're looking at them, you can also look at yourself and say, hey, how are my photos coming across? And is my energy and my essence really true to who I am? I think that'll be really helpful online as well. Okay, let's see. We've got, what are your thoughts on prayer manifesting your life partner? Well, that's a great question. And I think a couple of things I would say about that is it kind of depends upon how you define prayer. I think that prayer is a word that has a lot of different connotations to it. And so I would say when it comes to manifesting, and sorry, we're in my hotel room here, and there's lots of background noise and things happening. So bear with me. It's kind of taking me out of the channel here for a minute. So prayer is something that I think you don't want to define as religious prayer. I think I like to think about prayer as an intention. I like to think about prayer as a request. I like to think about prayer as an energy. Prayer is something where we are calling something in. Now, prayer is also a vibration that we want to have within ourselves. Help me, show me where I can be in resonance with what it is that I'm asking for and praying for. Help me make those shifts. Like, what is it that will help me make that energetic shift to find out what it is that I really want and need. And am I being truthful and honest to myself? Am I really asking for the vibration of the energy of which I want to come forward in my life? So again, I got a little on the prayer thing because I think for not necessarily the person that asked it, but for the collective, there's a lot of connotations that come up with that particular word. And I would just come back to that energetic vibration and really aligning with that to manifest that life partner. So if you want someone who's compassionate, if you want someone who has flexibility, if you want someone who has an open heart, if you want someone who can love unconditionally and soul share, then I would write those things down, and I would also do that inner reflection of myself. Oh, okay, well, where am I on my ability to love unconditionally, on my ability to be in that soul sharing space? Is my heart still broken, from many, many heartbreaks? I think sometimes we think that old heartbreak is like gone. Oh, I don't think about that person anymore. And you may not think about that person from 20, 30 years ago, but that first heartbreak is the heartbreak that we always want to go back to, from the sense of vibrationally healing our hearts back to wholeness. That's where we store a lot of this heartbreak and this emotion at a cellular level. And so ask yourself, am I really there? Okay, so there's some other questions here around that. And living by example the way you wish to be perceived and received. Yes, absolutely. It's really just being that person. Because, okay, let me say this as well. So I had this beautiful opportunity to meet with some friends last night, and it was a beautiful dinner party. And a couple has a new baby. And the story came forward to share about how sometimes we think that love is outside of us. We have a new baby, and that pure, innocent love is just glowing from that little child. And yet that love is still within you. It's actually not coming from the baby in that sense, because it's your association, it's your lens, it's your feeling, with the baby, but it's inside of you. So I feel like it comes back around to that, to keep generating your own love within you. And that is what exudes out and can attract your life partner. And if there's things you still want to clean up within your own heart space, right? If you're broken or you're blocked, which I'm not saying you're blocked. I don't think you are at all. I think you're in a very, healthy healing phase. And so honor that beautiful space, because when we're in heartbreak or we're coming out of heartbreak, it takes some work to really allow ourselves to be vulnerable again. But I think that vulnerability sometimes is the most beautiful part of heartbreak, because it just recenters us. It recenters us into our own love. And it begs the question for each of us, how much do I love myself? And where are some of the little bits that need to be dusted off about my own love for myself? And when we really show up with our love and our, I think having our heart on our sleeve is a great thing. Of course, we need to use discernment. I'm not saying let someone, take your heart and run with it. I'm saying show up. And if you're hurt and your heart hurts, then you say that. We don't need to sugarcoat things. And again, I'm not saying that for you. I think it's more for the collective that sometimes we sugarcoat, we put Band-Aids on our heartbreak, and we try to just say, oh yeah, that person doesn't matter, or that situation doesn't matter. Let me move forward. Let me find new love. And so I think love is love. All right, let's see. We have other comments here. Okay. All right. I'm loving this, Beth. How do you know what you would want in a partner? Well, I think that goes back to what is it that you want to feel? What do you want to feel in relationship? In general, okay, actually, let's take it back a step. How do you want to feel in the day? How do you want to feel? So how you want to feel should be your focus, not how is my partner making me feel, or what do I want my partner to make me feel? So really understand yourself. Do I want to feel joy? Do I want to feel happy? And know that happiness is your responsibility, not the responsibility of the other person, whether it's, your family members or a romantic lover or a long-term partner. I think sometimes we get caught up in this idea of like, you're making me feel this way, and it's genuine. And I'm not saying that it's not. I think it's important to be really aware of how someone else is making you feel, but that you ultimately have that responsibility for your own happiness. So, and we do have a live mic out there. I know we've got a lot of people in our little audience here, and we've got some people that are going to be moving up to the mic here real soon. So I would just say that it's so important for you to know that your happiness is ultimately your responsibility. And if let's say that someone's doing something that's making your happiness wobble, it's completely fair to say, wow, their behavior has made me feel this way. So I'm not suggesting that you have to take it all on yourself. You say, thank you. Okay, in your mind, maybe you're not saying it to them. Thank you, so-and-so, for reflecting that to me, because when you did that, it made me feel this particular way. So first of all, you acknowledge. You say, okay, yes, I acknowledge that when you did that, I feel this way, because then you're really present with your own feelings and your awareness of your feelings as opposed to shoving it down. So then what you want to do is be able to communicate to your partner. Hey, when you said this, it made me feel this way. And they can say, well, I didn't mean to make you feel that way, right? So then there's kind of that back and forth. And then you sit with it. And you really sit with, how do I feel and why do I feel that way? What's the trigger for me? And that's kind of the juicy spot, because oftentimes, especially like if it's a longer term relationship, like you've been in this relationship for a while, there is, I like to call it a dossier. And what I mean by that, like a whole resume, like all these experiences that we've had together that have made me feel X, Y, and Z. And it gets complicated because then we have all these past emotions and past examples of situations that made us feel a certain way with this person. And so sometimes someone will do something and you feel this way and you go, oh, that just doesn't make me feel good. But the really juicy bit is to get into you and understand, well, what is it that's really triggering me within myself, deeply within me? Like, what is it? Because everybody in relationship is a mirror. And I know sometimes that can get challenging to like, no, I wouldn't ask them to do that to me. But there's something juicy in there for you to really say, okay, let me get that. And I think when you can diffuse these situations, these emotions within yourself in a healthy way, not shove them down, but diffuse it and be like, oh, okay, I'm feeling this. I really get that I'm feeling this. Then you identify within yourself what it is that you want to let go of, and or what you need to communicate with them. Because remember, we think people should be able, we all think, I don't mean it specific to you, but that people should be able to read our minds. Like, can you not read my body language that I'm upset? Yeah, they might be able to, but they might not be able to. And the reality is that we have to continually identify our feelings and then share with the other person so that they understand why you feel that way. And when you get into your feeling space, as opposed to you did this, I'm just trying to make an example, because that puts them on the defensive. So you really want to be anchored into, I feel this way. And sometimes we have to say to our loved ones, when you did that, it made me feel whatever it is, angry, sad, frustrated, and I don't even know why. Will you sit with me and help me work through this? That oftentimes brings a different energy to the table, because then you're not blaming them for making you feel that way. You're identifying, I have this feeling, and you're also saying, and I don't really know why. Or I feel like it might be this, this, and this, but there's probably something deeper here. Could we work through this together? And also what comes to say is just taking that hand and maybe touching their knee, when you say, can we work through this together? Can we talk about this together? Because I'm not sure that I really know what it is. And then that can lead to a really heartfelt conversation about your feelings. And let's also keep in mind that sometimes general sweeping statements again, but sometimes men don't have the same level of interest in talking about the layers of feelings that women have. So we have so many shades of gray. Things are not black and white oftentimes for us, and it makes us beautiful beings. But for men, sometimes they just don't want to get into the minutia of the feelings because they don't experience them in the same way. And the reason why I'm saying this is that I think as women, we also need to honor that men at different points in time have a different desire and capacity level to talk about our feelings. And so sometimes we do need to have those conversations with others, but in a very protected way. And when I say protected, I mean that's not in a way of like complaining about the other person, but in a protected way that you're taking the love that you have with this person and saying, I really want to work through this issue. So maybe you're sitting with a friend and you're saying, will you sit with me and hear me out? Because sometimes we just need to talk it out. Again, from the place of your heart-centered space, not from the mind, not getting another friend. And again, I'm not saying this is you, but not getting another friend to just say, yes, oh yes, you're so right. And then making it about him or making the issue be about him. So I know I kind of went off into a tangent there. I'm just bringing through what's coming in around some of the questions that are coming through. And sometimes they're specific to the person asking them, and sometimes they're for the broader collective. So I think how we communicate our feelings to other people is so important. And then even more importantly, when we walk away from a situation that made us feel bad with our partners, especially the romantic ones, because those are, that's where the real, the heart is really, really heavy and connected, is that we really ask ourselves, what did I not say? I don't mean to get into a head trip about it, but what did I not say? And when you go there with yourself, why did I not say how I felt? That's you. That's you wanting to either protect your heart. You haven't felt like your heart was seen in the past. And if that's the case, then again, finding that really emotional articulation with your partner. And sometimes we have to walk away because we're emotional in the moment. Then we say, what just happened made me feel, and I'm making this up, but really angry. And I don't want to have this conversation from an angry place. Can we just take a moment, or can we take a break, or can we revisit this in maybe 15 minutes? I just want to go and just reflect with my own heart where this is coming from for me. And when you do that, I think it also gives your partner just like, oh, okay, I'm going to get a breath of fresh air here. We're not going to go into, that back and forth conversation. So hopefully that's helpful. If not, I know you're on with me live here. I would love to hear. So please don't hesitate to add more if there's something that you feel like you'd like me to elaborate on, or there's a question that comes up as a result. Okay, I know we've also got burning questions from the studio audience, so I can come back to this one if you want to write something later. All right, so we've got someone up to the mic now. Please.
Yeah, my wife and I have a new baby boy, and we've noticed that her mother's being, extremely possessive of the baby and wildly critical of my mother wanting to spend more time with our little boy. And I really just don't know what to do about it.
Yeah, I think that's a really special and unique situation. First of all, what comes to mind to say is really honor and be grateful for the fact that you have two grandmas who love and adore you and your wife and this new baby. Now, when new babies come in, as I was alluding to on this previous question, there's this beautiful little glow of love and innocence that comes into the world, and it's so precious. And everyone wants to partake in this because it fills our cup. It really, literally fills our love cup to be in the presence of a little baby. So both grandmothers are coming at this from their lens and their life experience because they've done this before. They've had their own babies and they've loved their babies. And now they want to just really give you all their wisdom and knowledge and put it onto you and your wife and the baby. And so what I would recommend is honor the beauty of that love that they have and the fact that they want to participate and that they want to help. Secondly, if it's appropriate and you feel like it works for you and your wife, I would have the conversation like, hey, let's make light of this. And let's ask both grandmothers, if it works, to sit together and let's just share with them like how much we love and adore them and appreciate all of the contributions that they're giving towards our new little one. And then bring up some things that are very specific to what you're witnessing. Like, but when you guys have differing opinions, it makes it so hard for us because we're new parents and we want to get it right too. And we want to hear your wisdom. But we can't like have everything on, stereo all the time and hear all these different opinions and then have you guys have different opinions and then we have different opinions. And so we're going to try to keep our stake in the ground as to what we think is best for our child. And we're going to work from that place of my relationship with my wife, right? But the way you say it, when it comes from a heartfelt place, they're going to get it. They're going to be like, oh yeah, okay, I get it. Like I'm a little too overly emotional about my own lens of which I have from how I raised my children. And I think when you really put that stake in the ground, you can just say, and we're going to make decisions that we feel are right for our family. I think that's going to help you out a lot to just diffuse, but also give them the understanding that you really appreciate the love of which they're coming at the situation. Does that help? Or do you feel like is there a different energy there that I'm not picking up?
Well, it's just that ultimately we're being critical of her mom, who is a bit of a shrew. So it's going to be a delicate matter to.
Who's being critical? You are?
We are. I am.
Oh, you and your wife are. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
To her mother, who,
Yeah.
Trust me, is she's more than a bit of a shrew. She's a shrew.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to let her know that her behavior is not cool, essentially.
Yeah. Okay. So I just want to share that. I feel the frustration in your voice. And what I'm suggesting is that you find a place to come to your heart center and stay a little bit out of the mind, because the mind is what's making the judgments and they're all valid. I'm sure there's validity to everything that's being said there, but come to your heart space and realize that your mother-in-law is actually wanting to help. And even if she's not wanting to help and she's just trying to be difficult, then that's speaking your truth for that too. Like, hey, I feel like on one hand you want to be helpful, but on the other hand, I'm not feeling it's helpful. And I need to find a way for us to communicate here on this. Yeah.
But honestly, I'd rather not do it myself. I'd rather not be the messenger. Mm-hmm. I think she should be the messenger simply because it's her mother, not mine.
Okay.
And she's not very fond of me to begin with. So it's really complicated.
Yeah, it does sound really complicated. And so I think that is a conversation you want to have with your wife. And again, I feel like for you, just getting back into that heart space, because there's so much frustration here, and figure out for you, what is it that is being triggered in you about the situation? And I think when you do that, then you're going to be coming from like where you are and what you need to do for you, as opposed to sort of putting that onus onto maybe your wife or the judgments or the feelings that you have towards the mother-in-law. So I think that you're right. You're on it. There's a lot of complexity here, and there's a lot of things that you really want to get into to understand about yourself and how you may be contributing to that relationship as well. So sometimes it's hard. There's a lot of complexities there, but I would, number one, keep the bond with your wife as the number one priority. I think that's really important for you, and it's really important for her. And so I think the pressure that you might try to put onto her to have all of these conversations about your feelings may be a little unfair at times. And I think just feel into like, where do you really need to speak your truth? And where do you need to let some things go? So hopefully that's helpful. I think we'll keep moving on. Okay, we've got some other questions from the live audience.
Okay. Hi, Beth. Welcome to Singapore. I'm very excited to actually ask for your advice on some activities that I do here in Singapore, actually also recently in Hong Kong. I actually help organize many singles gatherings because there are actually many wonderful women and men who are single, particularly at a marrying age. And particularly in Asia, there's a lot of pressure from the family, from the society to get married, and of course immediately then to have children, and so there are. So I have been involved with organizing singles gathering, either based on schools or companies. And what we have found is that these are usually vastly oversubscribed by women, very accomplished women, great education, higher degrees, and almost no men. And in fact, the most recent one, this was for a like Ivy League gathering. It was all women, no men, and we had to basically go out and say, well, hey, men come in groups, and even if you are coming from just come from any school, any profession, please come.
Yeah.
And do you have any suggestions for me? And is this particularly in Asia, or is this also true in other parts of the world?
Yeah, I think it's true in other parts of the world as well. I think that there's an extra dynamic that I'm hearing on this one, that the Asia component of like sort of the pressure of like getting married, and there's a lot of, I think, societal, cultural thought constructs around getting married and when to get married and having babies, and while they're not bad, they're just not necessarily necessary. Now, I'm going to come back to that in a second, because I think one of the things that came through was to hear you say that, there are a lot of women that come and no men. So maybe something fun that you could do is when the women come, that you actually make a new activity. And the new activity is that when the women leave, that they are looking for men that they want to invite. So meaning like when we're looking for someone, so if I'm dating, and I want to go out and look for someone, it's sometimes harder for me to approach men and say, oh, come to this, or oh, do this, or whatever, because we haven't, it's like that jostling, we're not really sure. But if all the women went out and said, I'm part of this organization, and there are, whatever, 20 or 30 beautiful women that come to this, and I would love to invite you as a single man to join this organization and see what the opportunities are. So just meaning that you kind of bring the energy to the women that do come, to take it back out there and look for someone else, if that makes sense. Meaning, because you take the pressure off of like, well, I'm going to go invite someone to come to this. Well, no, I'm going to invite someone because I want to bring other beautiful men to this place where there's all these beautiful women. I mean, it's kind of silly to say, but some men go do yoga simply because they want to be there, because there's a lot of beautiful women, heartfelt women. And so it's kind of that idea of like, let's just have the women go out and start cultivating, and the activity with the women could be, hey, what are you looking for? What are you looking for? And so I think as women, if we can help find men for our friends and our fellow, colleagues or whatever, if you're in this group, that it comes from a different place. And sometimes it's easier to go out there and approach other men, right? Because we're like, oh gosh, I was just at this event and there was these beautiful women, and there's one woman in particular that I just would love to help her find a beautiful partner. And I saw you from across the way, and I thought, wow, you just have a really beautiful energy. I'm making it up, or whatever,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And then you say, oh, I just feel like you have this great energy, and I would love to invite you because I think you would find some of these other women to be, a potential partner for you. So you see what I'm saying? Like the dynamic is different, because then you're approaching them, you're finding out if they're single, but it's not specific to you. And who knows? It could be, I know you're asking this for a group, but it could be that man that you approached and said, genuine things to, then you end up having the conversation, and it ends up opening a door. And then, yes, there's a lot of different things we can do, I think, to bring more men to these events. And one of them is just for all the women there to be ambassadors for other women.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great input. And particularly recently, November 11/11 is Singles Day. So it sounds to me it's creating some event that would allow women to go and ask for other women to come, and also for men to also feel comfortable to come. I think I was also just pointing out the difference of men feeling uncomfortable to marry up or women to marry down. And again, it's in the society, it's extremely, or for women to be with a shorter man. There's and it's just the restrictions just sort of go on. So, if I may, I'm going to just ask a second question, which also relates to particularly Asia.
Okay.
So there are many in Asia, unfortunately, for good or for worse, many men have mistresses. Particularly, and it's just something historically, but it is a reality. There are many businessmen, who have mistresses. My question to you is that, how about for successful women to have a mistress man? I don't know what the word is, and I don't know. Do you think that would is that a and if so, do they have to do it in secret, or is there also a way to mainstream that? Because unfortunately, it's really mainstreamed amongst men.
Yeah, I love those questions. I think that men across the world have mistresses. So I don't know. I mean, I hear you saying about Asia, and there may be like a little bit different dynamic to that. There's some personal opinions that I have, but I want to take it up like a little bit to another level of consciousness, that I think we need to be in a place where we're thinking about energy between, and I'm saying this for conscious individuals. This might not be for people who are in a different spiritual space in their life. That I live in a place in California where a lot of people are polyamorous. It is just like a thing. And they are finding that it's helping them to see a lot about themselves, to be in multiple relationships. So that's from a more, where I'm coming from is a more spiritual perspective of like, oh yes, I want to have multiple relationships with multiple people, because each person brings a little bit different dynamic, a different intimacy, a different, different characteristics, different things about me. And it's finding out about you, right? That those relationships come forward. So I think that if both people want to have multiple partnerships, that open it up to a polyamorous discussion, because why should it just be, one way or the other, right? Why should it be that just the men can go and have these kinds of relationships? Now, with all that said, my personal feeling on this, and from a higher level of consciousness, is also that soul sharing is one of the most beautiful, sacred things that we can do as a human. And when we start to get multiple people involved in soul sharing, it can become very complicated, and it can create a lot of barriers and boundaries to someone's heart, because there's just, I experience, and I think a lot of people experience, that a relationship with one person can be a lot to really dive into and to really soul share with, and to, so when we start to get multiple dynamics going, then it's a lot of mind space. So what's coming to me to say, and I know that it's not exactly this, but as a mother, when you have one child, you have mind space that is focused on that one child. And then you have the second child, and then you're like, whoa, I got to get more mind space because I got another child, right? And then, whoa, and then the more children we have, we realize, oh, I have compartments of my own mind space, and it's not good or bad. It's just the reality. It takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of energy to be like tuned in to each child in a different way, because each child has different needs and their own energy and their own, So I think when we look at it, and again, I don't mean this romantically from the children perspective, I mean it from like a heart space and a mental space of how we share. And one of the things that I think partnership in romance brings that is so precious is it brings a stability to us to be able to, if we build the foundation and we stay in that love, and we like keep that little, I like to call it like a little glow of love, between the two of us, it creates a foundation that is just so phenomenal for us to feel seen and heard, and just feel like we have someone that's got our back. And when we start to get, 4 balls of these light, and we're juggling all of these balls, then it's not as sacred from a, because other people would say, oh no, it's sacred. If it's sacred for you, great. Then do your, dance with your 4, 3, 2, whatever. But I'm just suggesting that it's really that soulful space within us that is so sacred when we can find someone that we want to just merge with, into oneness with. And so societally, I think there's a lot of people that aren't necessarily in their spiritual awakening journey. And so for them, I don't think my response is going to be as pertinent. But for others who want to be in that more sacred, loving, soulfully sharing, I want to have transparency, I want to go deep in my soul, and I want to express my feelings, I think it gets really complicated. And then you add some of the cultural nuances to that as well. And if people aren't breaking through the cultural nuances, then I think all of this discussion falls apart very quickly.
Yeah, thank you. So what I hear is that there are three categories. One is the more traditional, conservative, and very highly compartmentalized. The which is currently in the domain of men who would have a wife who bears children, is the wife, and the mistress who is the person they go out and hang on, their hand, what do you call it, arm candy.
Yeah.
And so and why not for women to do that? But that is definitely then a much more not in your words, not a really enlarging experience such as a polyamorous, where you are attempting to have people who would come and give different facets, but to enrich your world, to the final one, which is actually a true soul sharing partner, which would really have to be one person, back to one person. And I think it sounds to me it really takes a person to go back to what do they really want in a partner. So that was very helpful. And I think in the society, sometimes in its very in its rigid in its tradition, I think it often doesn't define what a true partner is. And I think we have to go back to identify what is a soul partner. So I think that was very, very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. And just to add to that, like, it's how big can we expand and grow our own consciousness and our own love, and then share it with someone else. And when it's fragmented, it just becomes difficult to grow it in that way. And I think it comes back to power. I think power of the mind versus power of the heart. And if you're someone who wants power of the mind, then not you, but then if you're with someone who wants to have the arm candy and wants to do all these different things without you, you've lost a lot of their mind space right there. So yeah, but if you're someone who's in the more like heart space, I want to see how big can I grow and glow my own heart. Then you really get into like a whole different place of beauty and oneness. And then, I feel like when we have those partnerships, well, first of all, when we have our own self-love and we're glowing it that big, and then we have someone else that wants to glow with us, that's like really pollinating the planet with love, because you walk out and love is in the air, right? And we see this in new love all the time. Like when people are first together, it's like, but how long can we keep that love growing as opposed to kind of constraining it and putting that light out? And that happens with, I think, some of the responses from some of the previous questions. It's the dossier we build against people. It's the checklist of things that they did that didn't make us feel good, and they're all preferences, but they're from the mind, they're not from the heart. And so when we get back to our hearts, I think it's just such a beautiful thing. So yeah, thank you for asking that question, because I do think it's so relevant across the world. And even though there's some cultural things that are probably, really strong in what you asked, I think it's relevant for everyone. So thank you.
Thank you, Beth, and enjoy your time in Singapore.
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we've got some other pre-submitted questions, and we also have, I know, some questions from audience members that they're going to hand me their cards. Okay, so here's another question that was pre-submitted. Is it normal to be worried that you're just settling after being together for so long? I'm not sure what, when we say so long, like if that's 5 years, if that's 10 years, if that's 20 years, if that's 30 years, but I would go back to this analogy of this little glow of love that we share with other people in romantic relationships. And I believe we have soul contracts. Soul contracts have nothing to do with marital contracts. Soul contracts are reasons that we've asked this other person to come into our life and the role that they play. Sometimes it's a forever lover and spouse, and sometimes it's a short term and we consciously uncouple. Sometimes it's a situation where we have incredible heartbreak because there's infidelity or whatever. Now, I know that's not the question here. But when you say just settling, I guess the other question comes to mind is how many other people have you been able to have experiences with? Now, if you can find a high school sweetheart and live with them and be happily ever after for the rest of your life, I think that's fabulous, because then you've built the foundation, and as long as you're continuing to grow and glow that love, then that's beautiful, because you may be able to achieve everything that you wanted to achieve from a romantic love standpoint with that one person. Most people end up needing to have multiple experiences with multiple people. And it doesn't always mean that you don't come back to that other person, right? Lots of people have an incredible relationship, and then things happen and you're like, oh, I don't know about this person. You break up and you go out and you start dating other people, and then you come back to that person. I'm not saying that has to be for you, but I'm saying that, having these experiences with multiple people gives us some ideas about ourselves and what it is that we want and what we need. And we change and grow so much all the time. Even when we're in our 50s, we're still growing and still changing. And so I think finding that person that you want to be with, it's important to feel like you have explored options, you've explored people. So if there's even the hint of like, am I settling? That to me says, ooh, okay, well, there's a question there. There's a question in my mind about this person. I don't think it means that you're settling. I think it means that you have curiosity. And I think that if you don't find a way to explore that curiosity, that it will come back around later. So meaning there is some little discord, nuance. It doesn't mean that it's bad. It just means that there's something there that's making you go, I'm not sure. And I think that's totally okay. And the fact that you're even like acknowledging it is really astute of you to want to ask that question now as opposed to later. And I guess what's coming is to have that really open conversation with your partner. Not that you would say to them like, I think I'm settling. Of course not. But that conversation of like, hey, I've really been reflecting on all the beautiful things in our relationship. And these are all the things that I find to just be like, whew, wonderful. And then I've also reflected on, these other things. And I wonder, like, are these the things that make us both tick? Are we trying to make something fit that isn't necessarily the best fit? Or are we just struggling with a few things right now that we're exploring about ourselves and each other? And when you have that more open-hearted conversation with your partner, then I think you'll find out too, like how interested are they in the deepening of your relationship? Because fortunately or unfortunately, a lot of times what happens in love is we get comfortable. We get comfortable. We get comfortable with routines. We get comfortable with how people respond to us. Everything's predictable, and we don't want to leave that comfort. And then, oh my goodness, the last thing we want to do, I'm just making this up, but is go date, right? Put ourselves out there, because then you have to be vulnerable again, don't you? So ask yourself those questions. Like, am I not wanting to pursue something because I don't want to be vulnerable? Or is it because I'm not able to be vulnerable with this person enough to clarify? And if not, well, why? What are my things? So I think there's lots of ways you can go about this and find out if you are ready to possibly have some other experiences in your life without thinking about this as like, and I'm not saying you are, I'm just saying this is natural. Someone would think, oh, but what if I lose the person? I believe 100% in destiny. I believe that if you are supposed to be with someone, that if you speak your truth and you be who you really are, and you talk to your partner about your areas of opportunity, that if you're meant to be together, you will be together. I also believe the opposite, that if you're meant to break up, you will break up. It just happens. It's the energies, it's your soul contract. And sometimes we try to hold something together that's not meant to be together anymore, or at least not meant to be together right now. So try to not be too hard on yourself about this. I love that you're exploring it, but really explore it from a vulnerable place. And I always talk about this, but I love journaling. I think journaling is so beautiful because we can ask ourselves some of our own questions and see what comes through for ourselves. And that's really helpful to hear what you're saying. And the most important part from my perspective with journaling is that when you I like pen to paper still. I mean, yeah, you can write it in your phone and stuff, but it just kind of brings when you're on your phone, it can ding, lots of other things can happen. But when you're sitting with a pen and paper and you're asking yourself questions, just sit for a moment, say, is that coming from my mind? Am I trying to formulate the answer? Or am I just sitting and saying, Spirit, speak to me? And just let the pen write. And don't worry. If you're worried about what someone else is going to read in your journal, then hide your journal somewhere or write it in a way that you can't even hardly see the scribble. But you want to start channeling your own inner wisdom. You want to start really anchoring in to your truth, as opposed to the storylines that we often tell ourselves about what we want to be true, but we know isn't true. Okay, I know I went off a little bit on that into a few different angles, but they feel really important to come back to that place within yourself where you really know what you want and know if this person is fulfilling your needs. Not from a selfish place, but not from a place that's selfish. Okay, that didn't make sense, I know. But what I'm trying to say is that there is a soulfully selfish place that we all need to be that has compassion and empathy for other people. Not from a selfish place where we don't care about how our actions, our words impact other people. So it's a very different distinction about when we talk about being selfish. And I think maybe the better way to say it is like when we're really in self-love, when we love ourselves so much that we want to speak our truth and we want to work through even when we don't know what our truth is in that moment, because it's an emotion that's clouding our ability to be clear. So hopefully that's helpful. And if not, I'm happy to elaborate on that more if you're watching with us live. Okay. Do we have anyone else from the studio audience? I think we've got a couple of questions that are submitted. Are these ones coming in for submission to read off? Okay. All right. Oh, wait, or is this one? Oh, I think it was. Okay. Okay. I'm 40, of Asian descent, living in Singapore. A man who I like wishes to relocate from California to be with me to see if we can build a future together. I have rejected him because I feel he is too serious. But also I wish to have a partner and children. I'm open to freezing my eggs too. What should I do? I guess there's a lot. I have a lot more questions in a way, but some of my questions are, how did you meet them? How do you communicate with them now? So if you're in a long distance relationship, one of the things I love about long distance relationships is that it really it encourages, it provides an opportunity for both people to have to communicate with words. A lot of times in romantic relationships, the sexual chemistry, the intimacy, all of that is wonderful, but it can cloud over learning some of the deeper beliefs and expressions of self that we exude in our everyday life. So maximize this opportunity to have those conversations. I would also suggest that if you're not already having like the video chats are important, more so than just texting calling is fine too. But the reason I'm suggesting video chat is that even though we have this issue with our eyes and looking into the camera and not really looking into the person, we still get to feel into their energy and their aura. Even if you're not like super sensitive in this way, you still start to read their body language. And what happens, the downside of long distance relationships, is that people build a story about who they want to be, but it's not exactly who they actually are. And when we're on video, we get to see a little bit more of like the full body, how people hold themselves and how people respond to our questions, the eyebrow that raises, the smile that happens or doesn't happen. So I would suggest that to be a real primary focus for you, is to do what you can to get to know this person. Because I think you have hesitation. I'm just feeling like that hesitation has something behind it that's very valuable for you to feel into. I like that you're not necessarily just jumping into it saying, yes, yes, yes. But then part of me is like, but why not? Why not? So is it something about them or is it something about you? Because the other thing that came up when I was reading the question is when you said something about being serious, that you're thinking they're too serious. And I'm wondering, well, isn't that kind of what we want? Like, don't we want people to be serious about wanting to build a relationship with us and getting to know us and having that deeper feeling? So then I go, okay, well, maybe there's just a question for yourself to say, ooh, is it me that's not ready to be in a committed relationship, or am I scared about this? The other thing I'm picking up is that there is a level of commitment. I think we feel like if somebody moves their whole life across, a continent or an ocean to be with us, that we feel like, wow, that's a lot of weight. And it's true. It's a lot of weight. I've done it myself for other people, and I've had other people do it for me. And you do become that person's best friend, social calendar. You know everything. You know where to get your groceries and your clothes dry cleaned. And so there is like a real reality to having someone move to your country if they don't have any other friends or anything going on there. So I think if that's the case, setting some really great boundaries up front would be good for both of you to relieve some of the stress that I think you might be feeling, which is, I really want you to, if this is how you feel, I really want you to come, but here are my concerns. I'm worried that, I'm going to be everything for you, which I want to be. And yet I also need you to have your group of friends. So let's come up with a plan. Like, what are your interests? What groups can you join? What clubs can you be part of? So that you can also have your friends, your guy friends. And then the weight isn't so heavy for you to feel like you have to be like their sole tour guide, their sole happiness. So hopefully that's helpful. And if you're watching on replay, or if you are watching live, you can also put more in here if you have a similar situation about this, because I think long distance is such a thing these days, because we're looking for people, especially when we have such a global nature within ourselves. We're really looking for other people that aren't necessarily in our backyards. So it's a thing these days to really get into long distance relationships. Okay, I know we have so many more questions and we're kind of down to the wire, but okay. So we're saying we're okay on the studio audience, and there's a few more here that I want to get to, but I think I'm going to have to hold them till next week because I want to honor all of your time right now here in Singapore. And I so appreciate each week you tuning in, asking your questions, and really going deep. You can always go to bethbell.me, fill out the state of the heart assessment, find out where your heart is, if it's blocked, broken, healing, or whole. And there's so many other resources like the Awakening and Healing Handbook on bethbell.me, and some other handbooks that will help you, I think, with your spiritual journey and your awakening journey along the way. So until next week, I am wishing you much bliss and joy and love on the journey. Namaste. Yay.